Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind podcast with Hilary Saxton. This week covering off 3 questions we've had emailed into us. The first one is around finding sites. The second one is around transitioning into development into retirement but still doing development and how you could do that. And the last one is around the internal rate of return. That one's going to be a great one. We'll discuss it in the podcast. Let's jump on in. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 55. Yay! Hey, giving away the book, Property Millionaires Exposed, as we do every week. So if you'd like to win a copy, comment favourably, send us an email, send us your question. Give us 5-star raving reviews, share us with a friend, whatever it is you need to do, you go in the draw to win. This week, it goes to Alejandro Micon. Now, I spoke to Alejandro this week. He was wondering about getting into development and wondered if we were the right people for him. We told him exactly we were the right people for him. We care a lot about our community. So anyway, Alejandro, this book is in the post to you today. Now, welcoming as usual, my amazing guest, Mr. Bob Anderson, the legend, 38 years in property development. We think it might even be more than that now. He said he's been saying that for a year or two. And just a legend, still not retiring, right. Still developing, still working. We're working in every state. We've got students in every state and we do an amazing job. And you, Bob, do an incredible job. So why not answer a few questions from people that have come in?
Great opportunity to do that. Let's do it. It's great. We can do it on a podcast because people get to learn the answers then as opposed to just answering somebody individually.
Exactly. We do have a live Q&A every fortnight with our bundle program. So if you're interested in joining our community where you can ask questions, it's in a closed Facebook group and it's a load of fun, an absolute load of fun. But anyway, I'll get started. The first question, Bob, came in from Ben, and this is what he says. I have recently watched some of the videos that you and Bob do and found them very informative. Thank you, Ben. My partner and I are property investors and have done a range of developments from simple subdivisions up to 8 townhouses. Wow, that's pretty amazing, 8 townhouses. Well done, guys.
Yeah.
Over the last 12 months, I've managed to secure 2 properties at a great price, but it has proven very difficult and both have had very complex settlements with funds withheld, etc. Oh, that's not so great. We've tried a number of techniques to secure off-market properties, like getting on all of the real estate agents' markets lists, and we've done our own letterbox drops as well. I'm hoping that you might be able to suggest some other techniques that could be worth trying. Bob?
Yes, off-market deals. Well, what we're talking about there, in case you're not familiar with the term, on-market means that they're publicly available. Agents have them listed. They're probably on realestate.com and Domain, they're in the agent's window, so they're out there. Off-market deals are ones that aren't publicly advertised. They might be able to be purchased, but they're not out there. And they're good to get because there's less pressure. You can imagine going to an auction and having to fight for a site. Very different if you can find an off-market one, particularly if you can deal directly with the owner. So, my mind goes straight to buyer's agents when you think about off-market deals, because buyer's agents, they're people who represent the purchaser, not normal real estate agents who represent the seller. And you can engage them, you have to pay them something, of course. But they often have avenues that they've built up where they can get off-market deals. And I think, I'm quite in favour of buyer's agents, good ones, people, ones that know what they're about, and particularly if they understand development sites. So I'm very in favour of using buyer's agents.
But you made a really good point there, Bob. I was talking with a mentoring student yesterday afternoon and we were discussing a patch she's looking at, and we were talking about buyer's agents and finding one in that patch, and she mentioned a few things. And I do know somebody who lives in that area in Australia, and I sent a friend of mine a message and said, would you recommend a good buyer's agent in that area? And he goes, no, they're all not great, but try this person here for another reason. So I think the point is finding a good buyer's agent. There's a lot of buyer's agents sort of out at the moment. They're new off. I think somebody's had a course maybe. And
the last couple of years there has been courses on how to become a buyer's agent, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. It's just that it draws a lot of inexperienced people into that space. And so I'd be looking for somebody who's been a buyer's agent for 3 or 4 years or more.
Or maybe someone who's held a role where they've got plenty of connections. You've got to be able to have a network of people that you can reach out to.
Yeah, and I've seen some good real estate agents move out of normal real estate agency to become a buyer's agent. So they've got plenty of experience as well. Good if they have, because they would have built up good contacts over that period of time. And hopefully they'll know a good deal, a good site when they come across it. Yeah, so, I mean, we've had students in our program who've successfully used buyer's agents to get off-market deals. Yeah, you're thinking of a couple there?
In fact, we've got one student who's amazing.
Tell me about that one.
Should we say her name? I think she listens and we've said her name a few times. She's like, don't embarrass me. But she likes it, so I can say her name. Tanya's done really well with connecting with her buyer's agent, who now wants to start recommending her as like development, giving out project managing and stuff. So
how good's that?
Yeah, she's done such a great job with making that relationship. And she's such a professional woman, and, she's working with us. She knows what she's up to.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking of another person who's recently in our mentoring program. They spent quite a bit of time spinning tyres, looking for deals, not quite finding them. And I think it was you said, look, just get out there and get a good buyer's agent. She did, and I reckon it was within a month or less.
I'd say 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Probably took them longer to pick their buyer's agent than it did for their buyer's agent to bring them a property that worked.
Yeah, and it did.
That's another thing, though, that on my last sentence there was a property that worked. You have to remember that buyer's agents don't necessarily know how to do the numbers correctly. That's your job.
Definitely, you have to take responsibility for your own due diligence.
Yeah.
But if they can drop something in your lap that you can look at straight away, and that's certainly the way to go. What do they charge, buyer's agents? What are the ones you've had experience with?
Well, some are a percentage and some are a fee up front. They do vary a bit.
I think like 2.5 is probably 2.5% of the purchase price. That's what I've been paying. But some flat rates. I mean,
it's mostly that percentage, isn't it?
Well, it's often the percentage, yeah. But as prices rise, as properties go up, sometimes you're better off with a flat rate. Like I know a buyer's agent who charges a flat rate. In fact, I know 2 that charge a flat rate of $15,000. Which, if you think if it's $1 million site, and that's not an expensive site anymore, 2% of that's 20, 2.5 is 25, the flat rate of 15. So, at the end of the day, though, I don't concentrate too much on the dollar value of the fee. I'm more interested in their ability to find me a really good site, because what's $5,000 in the big scheme of things if they can get you a really good site, and if they can negotiate on your behalf, which is another thing they can do as well, and quite often.
Because not everyone likes to negotiate.
No, often they don't, and they're not necessarily good at it. Whereas a good buyer's agent is a good negotiator. And my attitude is that, let's say they charge $15,000, $18,000, $20,000, they should be able to negotiate that off the price just with their own skills. And so, in a way, they're covering their fee and their ability to negotiate and get a good deal.
And that goes back to that experience. And I know it's that tough line, if you're new to something, but you need to. The experience doesn't, have to be from just buyer's agent. It could be something you've done in the past that adds to your ability to be good at what you do. But yeah. Actually, can I say about that? We've never had bad comments on any of our stuff. We only have 5-star reviews, all our Google reviews.
Never had a 4.9 even.
Nah, no funny person go do that. And the other day, a new buyer's agent, because I looked at their comment, because they put a sarcastic comment under one of our posts. And I looked them up, and they were a buyer's agent who was new, and we figured they were just after some free advertising. They wanted us to react.
Yeah.
But we just deleted you, so you deleted.
Bad luck.
Your comment was, if you're listening, remember she said, from a 20-year-old course. We're like, oh my God, it's Australia's most popular course. People, if you've looked at our recommendations and read our reviews. So.
Constantly up to date.
Oh my goodness.
And,
anyway,
and from somebody who's never been part of our community, never bought a course.
Yeah.
Well, that one went out straight out
the window.
Out the back door.
We roll our eyes.
Stuff.
Yeah, but we figured that was sometimes people want a way to become known. So it's better to become known in a positive way than in a negative way.
Oh, well, don't give that any more oxygen.
No, I'm not even saying. Well, they can't see their name. We took it off.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talk about buyer's agents, but, the things that buyer's agents do, we can do ourselves if we're prepared to put in the time and effort. I'm thinking about, well, particularly, let's say, sites that are getting a development permit. Who would be involved in that? Well, obviously the landowner, but architects. Architects are working on getting a development permit for somebody, town planners, and also if there's subdivisions, civil engineers. And so if we were to contact a number of architects, town planners, civil engineers, those sorts of people who could be working on development permits, and a lot of buyers agents have a network of these people, they can pick up deals off market before they become available, because the thing is, a number of people get a development permit purely with the intention of selling it with a development permit. They have no intentions of going on and developing it.
And there's also the opportunity, some people might want to, but circumstances change. Jobs change, life changes, got busy, whatever. There's a reason that they
can't get finance, who knows?
So they just want to sell it on. Yeah,
and so the people that are working on these development permits, those professionals, they know their client, and they'll assumingly know that their client's just getting the development permit to flick it, to sell it. And over the years I've had great deals thrown up to me by architects, town planners, engineers and the like. So that's a good source. That's what buyers agents do as well. They have networks of those people.
So if you're time poor, that's what they will do for you. But if you wanted to do it yourself, you could. What about tracking DA applications for
that's
council?
A good one. Yeah. The better council websites, you can track development approvals as they go through. So what you'd need to do there is, go on site. Some councils issue, I'm thinking of our local one where we live, you can go on there and have a look at all the development permits that were lodged in the last 30 days and then beyond that period of time, all the ones that are in council. I think of other websites where they actually tag them, where within the council website you can go into a mapping system and it'll tag all the different places that have current development permits or permits going through. Same thing, because what you can do off that, you can see who the applicant is. The applicant might be the landowner, who's the person you want to talk to, or it might be the town planner. Well, if it's a town planner, you can approach the town planner and say, look, I see you've got a development permit going through. We're developers, we're always looking for deals. Is your client intending to develop or sell? They might put you in contact, particularly if they're going to sell. And so tracking those DAs can be a really good way as well, because I bought a number of sites over the years off market where they're getting a development permit, and it gives you the time to talk to the owner to come up with a deal. And then when it gets the development permit, as long as it's got the right conditions, you can settle. And I've done that because it gives you the time to do the due diligence. You're not under any pressure. And when you pick it up with a development permit, of course, you've got a big head start. And so you don't have those holding costs for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months while you're getting a DA as well. So your profit margin's better.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. So this is some of the things that buyers agents do that you can do. And
for getting off-market deals. That's what the subject's about.
That's where we're heading to, or that's what we're on about, really.
Yeah. And another one is property managers. You think about property managers who obviously manage rental properties. Some of the big property managers have thousands. I mean, I'm thinking of one I know. They've got 6,000 properties on their books. Yep. I'm thinking of some smaller one-person operations. They might have 200 or 300 or 400. Every one of those clients of that property manager is a landlord. They're a property investor. And so a lot of them have land that does have development potential. Some of them would be interested in selling. Some of them would be interested in perhaps a joint venture. And often when a landlord sells a property, they often sell it back through their managing agent. It's just an easier operation for inspections and everything. So to form relationships with property managers, I mean, that's the thing that good buyers agents do, but something we could do ourselves. And I've certainly picked up some good deals over the years through property.
How many times have you said that today, Bob?
Oh, I've picked up a lot of deals over the years.
I've picked up a few good deals, yeah. You have.
Yeah, and look, once you get a little bit more confident and a little bit bolder, you could run little presentations. Like I've done that many years ago when I was building up a database of clients. I ran boardroom meetings for in usually at the property manager's place. They might have a boardroom, a meeting room where you can get 8 or 10 people, or have it at a local hotel or somewhere. A little PowerPoint presentation where I presented a little bit about property development, and then see who's interested, who's got sites that they want to sell, or who would be interested in doing joint ventures on their own land. And
Well, I suppose you think of even those, like a rental property that somebody has, could have the potential for like a subdivide, and that would be a great joint
could be
venture.
simple.
Yeah.
And a lot of landlords are sitting on old properties that are costing them a lot of money because of all the maintenance that's going on. And they could get rid of that old house and end up with, 4 new townhouses. And that could be a joint venture for you where you both get, the benefits of 2, the profits out of 2 each, using their land if they've got low debt. You don't even put any money in the deal, but that's another. But these are just different ways of getting to deals off market. And the big advantage, like I said, is it gives you the time to get the deal set.
And I think what's come up there when we were talking about both a buyer's agent and doing it yourself, or buyer's advocate, depending on the state you're in, is we talked about they've got a network of people and they communicate. They can reach out, and that's business. People, you need to have the ability to have a conversation. If you're shy, you've got to get over that. It's about being out there, and if you can't do that, then you must employ somebody else to do it for you, and that's okay. If it's beyond you, that side of it, that's beyond you, and that's fine. Sometimes you're better off you're always better off doing what you're best at.
I mean, the alternative is just to use real estate agents, and that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But there'll be competition for the site. You might be able to form some good relationships with agents where you get first quick look at it. They know a property's coming on the market and it's going to be listed, let's say, in 3 days' time officially. Well, they might give you the head start. And if you're quick enough, if it's good enough, you can do your due diligence. You might be able to sneak yourself in there.
But there was another wee little tip there, Bob. If you're quick enough and good enough and have done your due diligence, that means being buyer ready, which means having finance sorted, which means having structures sorted, which means having due diligence in your patch nailed.
Absolutely.
And they are 3 major things that your people must do. And otherwise, that you're not jumping in, buying something that doesn't necessarily work because you think it's a good idea. You've got to have a think in life. How many good ideas have you had that kind of weren't good ideas?
Well, if you get this idea wrong, it can be expensive. Because
exactly.
We're talking about a lot of money.
It's not just like that extra wine where you do something silly.
No.
It's a little bit more expensive.
Not that much fun.
No. So is that? I think that's the end.
I think that covers. That's some good tips there on getting off market deals.
Yeah. Okay. So question number 2, and they didn't say their name. Well, I didn't copy it when they sent it in. Hi, clever people. We like you straight away. Yours is my fave by far of all the real estate advice, vlog, and YouTubers. Nice. We like you even more. Hey, I've got a question. My partner and I are asset rich but cash poor at the moment. I love that word, at the moment. That means things will change. We want to transition into semi-retirement. I'd like to know the pitfalls and advantages of property development once your regular wage income slows and you're relying on rental returns from your assets and still wanting to build a portfolio. Big question, I know, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is moving from a paid job where we can produce our tax returns to the bank. They can calculate our serviceability. So asset rich and cash poor, well, that's okay.
Not everyone's perfect, but as in not everyone's
asset rich is still good.
Assets, got cash. Not everyone's ready for everything.
So congratulations, first of all, on building up a good asset base.
Yes.
A lot of people don't get to do that for various reasons, and you have, so well done. And now they want to make that transition period. And that's good too. So how do we do this? Well, we still want to develop. So some people might build up an asset base. They've got low debt, therefore they've got income off those properties, and they want to live off that income. Maybe a little bit of supplementary income from somewhere else. But what we're talking about here is still being a serious property developer once you left your day job. So let's just have a look. This is about finance. Hey? This is really about finance. This question.
Yeah.
And so let's have a look at what normally happens finance-wise, when we do a development. So when we buy a development site, and it could be a house on a block of land that we're just going to split into 2 lots. It could be a house on a block of land that we're going to build townhouses or even a giant, big apartment block. When we first buy the site, it's usually just a good old-fashioned residential investment purchase. You think about it. Going to buy a house, maybe knock it down, build 3 or 4 townhouses. We're going to buy a house, maybe knock it down, cut into 2 lots. And what we do after that is up to us, sell the lots, build houses, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just that nearly always what we're buying, as far as the finance is concerned, is an investment property. To us, it's a future site that we're going to get approvals on and develop. But as far as the finance is concerned, it's just an investment. So that's a normal retail bank purchase. The same as it is when we bought any other investment or even our own home. And so the two requirements there are deposit and serviceability. We have to prove that we can pay the interest every month.
And I suppose from where they were coming from, as in working into semi-retirement and not having that cash flow, it sounds like serviceability could be their issue.
Yeah, and so the only serviceability you would be showing would be rental off your investments. And, you know, that there might be quite a number of investments, or they might be high yielding. You know, they could be an NDIS product, they could be commercial where the yield is higher, but whatever it is, that's the income. And if that's not sufficient, because remember the banks will work out all your living expenses and everything else, and they'll come to, you know, an amount of money that's left.
How much you spend on shoes.
How much you spend on shoes, yeah.
Far too much in my case.
And so that mightn't be enough. So what do? We've hit a snag there. Now, the good news is that no-doc loans still exist.
They do, and we've just had one of our mentoring students get a cracker of a no-doc.
Well, it's a good no-doc. I mean, a lot of people think that, you know, no-doc loans disappeared after the GFC. Well, they did at banks.
We need to explain what a no-doc loan is.
Okay, and a no-doc loan, it really covers the issue of serviceability, because normally when you have to prove serviceability, you have to get your tax returns, you have to get income slips, show how much you earn. They'll take off what they consider to be all your normal expenses, and what you got left is what you can spend on the mortgage. Whereas with a no-doc, you don't need to support that information. There are low docs, but I'm talking about a no-doc, N-O-D-O-C, no-doc, no documentation. And so you don't have to produce tax returns. You don't have to produce employment receipts. And so in that particular case, it satisfies the people that don't have good serviceability. And of course, there's a price to pay for that. And I mean,
it's all factored into your fees, though, isn't it? That part,
yeah, well, you pay a higher interest.
Yeah,
that you pay a higher interest because the finance is taking a higher risk. But these aren't normal bank loans, the no-docs these days. They're done from what you might call non-bank financiers who will do those. And I mean, typically, I know who you're talking about there when you say one of our students recently got one, and that required 25% deposit. So you can't do it on 10 or 20 like a bank. It's 25, and the interest rate was probably about 2.5% to 3% above the normal bank rate.
I actually bumped into his financier last week, and he said, "What a cracker!" Because it was before the interest rate hike, so he's got a really great deal on a no-doc, really.
Yeah. And but the thing about non-banks is they're not tied to the RBA rates like a bank.
I forgot about that.
They don't even have to put their rates up if they're happy with their margins. Banks will jump on every opportunity because they're low interest rates lenders. Remember, a normal retail bank makes their money by lending at a low interest rate for a long period of time. So any chance they can get to put the rates up, they will. And they're not tied to the RBA; they can put them up anytime. Whereas the non-banks tend to be a little bit different. So yeah, that's
and
that's
the
a
interest on
possibility.
those, Bob, is capitalised. Explain that one.
Well, no, it's like a quasi-retail loan. So you do pay.
I love that word, by the way, quasi.
Quasi, yeah.
Quasi.
So look, some of them do capitalise the interest. Some of them you have to pay, but then what they sometimes do is take the interest out up front as well. So if it was like a 12-month no-doc loan, they might calculate the interest. That becomes part of the loan, and they pull the interest out in advance, a bit like bank bills, although we don't see many bank bills done these days. It's where the interest is like, it becomes part of the loan, it's pulled out, it's paid up front, you don't have to find the interest anymore, and then the loan will just run its term. It's a stopgap measure, because when you get your development permit, say we're going to do a 3 townhouse project, so you might use a form of retail loan to buy the site. Now, if you're good enough to get a bank loan, use a bank loan. But if you're not, if your serviceability is a real issue, think about a no-doc loan. That'll get you through to the point where you got your approvals. And then when you go to need more money for construction, that's when you can get well, you could run with that same lender perhaps, but you could otherwise swing over to probably a commercial loan, and it doesn't have to be with the same people. And that commercial loan could be with a normal bank where the interest is capitalised, or if you don't qualify for that, then there's still plenty of non-banks around. So you can do it. And non-banks, because the interest is capitalised, they don't look too closely at your income.
And of course, like the question that you've asked was about you're transitioning into semi-retirement, and you've got enough to live on. So you've obviously, you're a little bit financially savvy, we're thinking.
Yeah, and I think that like coming up with, say, a no-doc loan, 25% equity, it doesn't have to be cash. It could be in another property as well. So if there happened to be another unencumbered property, for instance, you might have a pretty good chance of getting even a bank loan, because you'll have a lot of security and you won't be lending to the maximum loan to value ratio. And so that makes banks a lot more comfortable as well when they've got lots of security to sit on. So it really ultimately is a good conversation with a smart finance broker.
There you go.
But you can do it. I mean, you could use no docs, like the particular student you're talking about. And the reason they use no doc is a very complex structure. Banks like things pretty simple. They're happy.
The minute it gets complex there.
Yeah. This was a complex joint venture. It was a joint venture arrangement where one of the parties was a company that had 8 directors and 8 shareholders. It was always going to be too complex for the normal bank.
They wouldn't get their head around that sort of stuff.
No, so we had to go to like a retail non-bank, and that's what. And because time was of the essence, there was a short time frame on the contract. The no doc was the way to go.
And how good was the finance broker? He was good.
Finance broker's a gun. Yeah. And it took, I think it was 48 or 72 hours to have a full approval.
Excellent. Last question, Bob, because we don't want to go on too long.
No. Unless you're finding it really interesting.
Oh, we are. We always try and keep under a certain amount of time because we know people are driving, and if you go too long, then you need to come back to it. Last question. We've been debating, there's no dear and no one, but it's from Brett. We've been debating evaluating a development deal. Some of our folks say return on cost is better than IRR, which is the internal rate of return. Bob will explain that. What are your thoughts and why?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Very technical. What do you call them? Acronyms? What do you call them? Acronyms. Got to love a good acronym.
The IRR. So first of all, explain what an IRR is.
Well, let's start with an ROC. Return on cost. Sometimes called...
So ROC versus an IRR, return on cost versus an internal rate of return.
Yeah, that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah.
So I better define what they are, I guess, before we talk about it. So one that's pretty common to developers, and certainly anyone who's done our courses, is what we call ROC, return on cost. So what that is simply, it's your profit expressed as a percentage of your total costs. So if your total costs were $1 million to do a project and you made $200,000 profit, so $200,000 as a percentage of $1 million is 20%. And that's return on cost, sometimes called margin on cost and sometimes called the developer's margin, but that's what it is. Internal rate of return, actually, without making it too complex, it calculates the return that you get, let's say, on a development project, but taking into account time. You see, the ROC simply is your profit expressed as a percentage of your costs, but it doesn't take into account time. So
what you could have done with that money, say you've got your 200,000, but it took 4 years to get it, versus it taking 1 year to get it. So what else could you have done with that 200,000 in those missing 3 years? That's kind of the difference there.
Yeah.
Does that explain it better?
Well, yeah.
For the layman.
Yeah.
Laywomen.
And what you just said, making $200,000 in 4 years versus making $200,000 in 1 year, which would you rather do? You'd rather make the $200,000 in 1 year.
1 year, please, Bob.
1 year.
Yeah.
So when we do return on cost, which is a very common thing, and look, commercial financiers look at return on cost. They might say, well, look, we need at least 18%. Well, it's no good if you got 10, you're not going to get the loan. So they have a particular target in mind. And that'll vary a bit with different products. But it doesn't take into account time. And so that's the issue. So as an investor, if you're a real dyed-in-the-wool investor and you're looking at, is my money working hard enough for me? Then you'd look at the internal rate of return. Now, financiers do also look at the internal rate of return. Like if you had a project that stretched on for years, and like the one you mentioned, made 200,000 in 4 years versus make 200,000 in a year.
That was fictitious.
Yeah. The internal rate of return on the long one would be quite low. Because
what would it be? You're quite mathematical.
I can tell you what you're looking for. The internal rate of return that banks and financiers often like is that 20 to 25% internal rate of return, but the ROC might be 18 to 20. And if you've got a long drawn out project, even though the return on cost might be showing 18 or 20, the internal rate of return could be 10%.
Right.
And so that's not a good outcome.
No.
And banks do look a bit at the internal rate of return. It's a complex formula. When I studied valuation for about 5 minutes once, you did have to learn how to do that. Net present value of money and internal rates of return makes your head spin.
So I suppose the question, Bob, which is great, is like some of their folks, must be friends, say that the internal rate of return is better than the return on cost. And what are your thoughts? Well, it's really about, some of that could be you're factoring risk factor, you're factoring in time. There's a lot of factors, but I would always go...
Well, I'd always look at ROC because that decides whether I'm going to get finance or not.
Oh, so start with ROC.
Well, yeah. And look, some probably more expensive property development feasibility programs, like Estate Master, for instance, they calculate the internal rate of return.
Okay.
So just to be clear, margin on cost, profit as a percentage of your total development cost. If a bank says, we're looking for a minimum of 18%, then that's what you need. The internal rate of return could be anything depending on time. I mean, it might be 20%, but if it's a long drawn out thing, it could be 10. That might be a bit of a negative for finance, even though the return on cost might be okay. So I'm always looking, and a nice comfortable level is sort of 20 to 25% internal rate of return on a project. Another thing that confuses people, I don't want to make it more complex than it needs to be, but it's a thing called ROE, return on equity.
Equity, yeah. And
so all that is really, it's the amount of money that you put into a project compared to your profit, but generally not taking into account time, because if you took into account time, it would be an IRR. So if you did a 4-pack of townhouses and you put in $500,000 and you made a profit of $500,000, but your money was out there for 2 years, like your return on equity is 100% because you made 500,000 profit on 500,000, but because it was out there for let's say it was out there for exactly 2 years, the actual interest rate return is closer to to half of that. So yeah, return on cost, return on equity, internal rate of return. So back to the question, I guess. It's good to look at both factors. I don't think you can say, just look at this one, just look at that one.
Yeah, it's like most things. It's very people specific. It's very where you are, what you're doing. Everything is specific. It's like, we currently have a project where we're offering a great interest return for self-managed super fund cash. A little plug here if you want to know more about investing with us, you're welcome to send me an email. I do all the investor liaison work. But
you do.
And we also have people that invest with our mentoring students because they know that Bob's holding their hand. So we have 2 opportunities for investors and they're just very different. One has a higher level of risk, one still minimised risk. One is first mortgage security, one's not. There's just 2 different things that go on there, and that is so specific to you. It's so specific to the person that I speak to, what they are wanting. I'm never going to sell somebody into anything they don't want or need.
No.
I don't want to sell it. It's an opportunity. If you like the opportunity, jump in. But, it's. I think it's so specific to the person.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, returns relative to risk.
Yes.
If you want a really high return, you're going to have to take a really high level of risk. You want low level of risk, you can still get a decent return. Compared to the banks, anything's great. Banks are offering you like 1% or something, and you can still get first mortgage security for like 9%. Well, why wouldn't you? That sort of thing. But yeah, individual.
We're offering more than that for first mortgage security.
don't you worry about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey,
Contact
Bob.
us if you want to invest in one of our projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, we know what we're doing, Bob especially.
We'll tell you all about it.
Hey, I think we should wind it up here, Bob. We have done a solid time. We like people to get from start to finish. If you're interested in knowing more about anything we have to offer investing-wise or our courses, investing-wise, email us just at admin@propertymastermind.com.au. The courses we have available, jump on. Our education program is changing and we're inserting a new program that you might like to be
Yes.
part of, redoing the website. So jump, if you'd like to know more about what we offer, propertymastermind.com.au. We have an investment book you can download from our website, and we've got one Facebook page and a few Facebook groups. So anything we can do to help, reach out. We love to hear from you. Thank you to the 3 people that emailed in the questions, and we'll see you next week for episode 56. Thank you, Bob.
Oh, yes, 56.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.